everyone, and welcome to part number 2 of my extremely short Bulgaria series. And hold on to your hats, because today, despite my face not showing it as usual, I'm in a relatively good mood today. I don't know why. In the last video in Vitosha, I did say that I would be going to Buzluja for this video. I missed the train. Apparently that happens in real life and not just in the movies, but don't worry, that will be rescheduled. I've filmed a lot over the last few days and I want to show you all of that while giving you a bit of commentary around my thoughts on Sofia and some of the things you can see and do here in a rather unnarcissistic YouTuber way, so you won't see me again until the end of the video. How refreshing, right? Anyway, let's get going. So we're starting off on this rather sunny Wednesday afternoon at the National Palace of Culture, which is relatively central. Let's put some drone shots over the top so you can see it a bit better. There we go. And I spend a lot of time here because it's relatively central, and if I'm honest, Starbucks is over the road. And on the subject of being honest, I'm going to be straightforward from the outset. I don't particularly have an immense interest in Bulgaria or Bulgarian history. I'm purely here because as a digital nomad in Europe at the moment, in the current climate, I need somewhere that is affordable for a relatively long period. And I am an EU citizen, I'm a Polish citizen as well as British, so it means I can stay here for an extended period if necessary. Right, back to reality. Let's go down Vitosha Boulevard. So here we go. I know I'm being a little bit basic bitch coming to the centre of town, but sometimes it's okay to be a basic bitch. We've got people playing the violins there, lovely. And this street, as you can see, it's just a typical centre of a city shopping street. You've got clothing shops, alcohol and tobacco, restaurants, cafes, you name it. And up the end there you can see an example of the wonderful architecture in Bulgaria. I do like the architecture in Bulgaria, particularly religious buildings. It's known as the triangle or square of religious tolerance because there are many religious buildings here from different religions. So there's a synagogue, there's a mosque, there's churches, cathedrals, you name it. One of the pieces of history I do like in Sofia is St. George's Rotunda. This dates back, wait for it, to the 4th century. Where can you come in the world and find something dating back to the 4th century still standing? Sofia, that's where. You know, it's kind of in the middle of some other buildings, so it's very much been left where it was, you know. I went inside, you can't film in there unfortunately, and it is what you would expect of 4th century. It is rather worn. That's the word I would use. I do have a question about, you know, renovation, because, you know, if you're a regular viewer, you know that I've been in Serbia a lot, and a lot of the churches and buildings like that in Serbia have been renovated or are in the process of being renovated. And I have the question, I'm kind of in two minds, you know, is it a good thing to renovate these buildings, or is it better to leave them how they were? I'm not sure, you know. I think they both have their merits. I'm at the end of Vitosha Boulevard now. I believe this grand building with the columns is a court, and over there we have a tram which we'll go into next. Brilliant. In Sofia, as with Belgrade, with Vienna, there are multiple trams in terms of age. There are more modern ones, there are older ones, and for me, someone coming from London, where yes, there are trams in South London, it's modern though, there aren't those historical trams anymore that there used to be, so coming to somewhere which is so reliant on trams in terms of its public transport in the city is truly fascinating for me. And I didn't realise before I started coming to these countries that there was such a fascination and appreciation for trams. There are all these pages over Instagram I follow. Many of you that I've spoken to are addicted to trams. It's a bit weird, I know, but, you know, weird is good. Now this is a site you will probably see upon Googling Sofia. It's the Alexander Nevsky Cathedral. Alexander Nevsky is a common name when it comes to cathedrals. I've been to one in Tallinn, Estonia, and I think it was in Odessa in Ukraine. And I've got to admit, and this might be slightly controversial, I was slightly underwhelmed and disappointed actually when I went to this cathedral, and I went inside as well. You can't film as per usual. It just seems very dirty and unloved. You know, the exterior just looks like it could do with a good scrub. You know, as per many buildings in Sofia, there's a university just over the road from the cathedral. Equally, it's not in the best state of cleanliness. I might be, you know, being really picky and complaining because, you know, it doesn't necessarily need to be perfect, does it? But I feel like there could be a little bit more effort. You know, it's the centre of a European city with iconic historic landmarks. Onto food and drink very briefly, as with everything in this video. Of course, in Sofia there is a plethora of dishes you can try, local dishes, you know. For example, banitsa, you know, the classic pastry and cheese based item similar to many dishes around the Balkans, in Serbia, in Turkey, all with similar roots. And of course rakia, the classic brandy like drink you could have, which is common across this region. But the thing I would say is that have the bloody street pizza when you're here. I have been astounded by the quality of the street pizza here. Yes, it's a little bit touristy, yes, it's probably overpriced, but it's worth it, honestly. You know, the thing I would say, as I've said before, is that there does tend to be this expectation when you travel that you must try the local cuisine, otherwise you've missed out and your experience is a waste of time, you know. But that's just not the case. If you want to have a street pizza, have a street pizza, and that's exactly what I'll be doing this afternoon. Right, it's me again, sorry, I thought I'd shake things up. On the subject of food and drink, I went to a Christmas market yesterday. Yes, I'm a Christmas hun. Can you believe it? I have a weird fascination with Christmas markets, and I believe it only opened a couple of days ago. I've got to be honest, it wasn't the most thrilling Christmas market I've ever been to, but you know, it's okay. You get mulled wine, you can have a lot of other German related dishes as you'd expect, sausages, chocolate, everything you want, you know. So it's good for a nice, you know, little evening out, or even in the daytime, as per me. Oh look, there's a Vespa. I'm heading back to Vitocha Boulevard, actually just off Vitocha Boulevard, because there's something amazing, which is really the bulk of this video, that I want to talk to you about and show you. Something I did a couple of days ago. Tramstam. Isn't it beautiful? That's one of the little small ones. I need to do some research about the age of all these trams. I'll do that later. But where we're going now is down there. Right, I just walked past it. What a dumbass. That shop over there, the one that says gifted or whatever, free Sofia tour, on the window is where you have to go to get your little lanyard thing, to go to the Red Flat, which is around that corner. Right, it's up here. It's number 12 here. Obviously we're not going in today, but let's sit down and tell you about it. So the Red Flat is an opportunity to experience and learn more about the latter stages of the communist era in Bulgaria in the 80s. And if you have been to European countries before and you're interested in that sort of thing, you might have been to similar places in other countries that were part of the former Eastern Bloc. For example, Poland, there's one in Warsaw. Slovakia, I think there's one in Bratislava, and also in what was East Berlin. And they're all kind of similar. They detail what life was like back then for people living there. And in this case, you pay, I think it's about €8. I put the price down below online, and then you get the lanyard, as I said, and then go to the building. Head upstairs, walk in, you get an audio tour which has 46 parts. That might seem a little bit daunting, like, oh my god, if you're the sort of person who, you know, doesn't particularly like museums. But this is not really a museum, it's kind of a real experience, you know, because while doing the audio tour, walking around the flat, you can touch, you can look at, you can read, you can look at photos, you can really interact with everything around you, you know, which I think is really cool, because in a regular museum, you know, I don't want to, you know, walk into a dusty old building and pretend to be interested in boring things in glass cabinets. You know, it's just not for me. I want to interact with things and feel like I was there. In the front room, you have various books, and particularly travel books I was quite curious about, because one of the things on the audio tour was the fact that around 7% of Bulgarians were able to travel within the Eastern Bloc at that time, and very few managed to go into Western Europe, for example. And when they did, they had the secret police following them, apparently, to ensure they went back. And there were books in there in Hungarian, in German. There was a Toblerone in the cupboard. I love Toblerones. There were little photo albums detailing Elena and Boyan's life. They were the people that owned the flat. There were also things like phones, of course, you know, the old dial phones, which, you know, I grew up with. Maybe Gen Z TikTokers didn't. Radios, record players, all sorts of things. Phone books, you know, so much stuff which, for me, as someone who is 40 years old, has memories of. And that's the thing about this place, that I feel like, you know, for someone that is younger, maybe a teenager or in their early 20s, perhaps they're at university studying history rather of the region, it would be quite fascinating, because those things maybe they didn't grow up with. But I think for someone of my age that did grow up with a lot of these items in this flat, it wasn't so fascinating in that regard. It was more nostalgic to get back to, you know, what I grew up with. And I think whether you grew up in a communist country, you or not, you still had those items, albeit, you know, living in a communist country was drastically different, you know, in terms of ability to travel, in terms of literature that you were able to read, and so on. There's so much in this audio tour which you can learn about, and I found it quite fascinating, to be honest. The kids' bedroom was really cool. There's so much stuff in there. It reminded me of a TV show when I was a kid, Finders Keepers, where people go into this house and just raid the room, I think it was, and they find all these different things. There were jigsaws, audio cassettes from back in the day. Remember them, you know, back in the 80s, having Bananarama on an audio cassette, or a tape as we would call it. Clothing, pictures of school, details about school back then and how it all worked. And I loved the kitchen. The kitchen was spectacular. You had like Nescafe products in the cupboard, you had washing machine, you had TVs, you know, all sorts of stuff in that kitchen which were just so iconic and relevant to that era, because they, you know, they were from then. And actually what I felt like walking around this flat was, it's kind of like any Airbnb I've stayed in, like a babushka flat, you know, in countries like Belarus, in countries like Serbia, you know, everything brown as it was back then. And it did very much kind of remind me of my nan's house, you know, or even my house growing up in the 80s. Everything was brown sofas, brown walls, brown wood everywhere, and the classic TV, which, you know, of course there was no remote control for, you had to press a button. Is it a little bit voyeuristic to have somewhere which, you know, depicts a time from only 35, 40 years ago? You know, it's not like the things I was touching and interacting with were artifacts from 1,000 years ago. How do locals feel that lived in the 80s during those times? Do they feel a bit odd that, you know, foreigners are coming to have a look at it and say, oh look, it's a phone? I'm probably over analysing, and locals probably don't feel like that at all, but it's just something I came away with. But overall, 10 out of 10, top tier. Right, before we go, why not have some of the aforementioned street pizza? It's behind those trams. Grab and Go Pizza Station. I mean, obviously I don't really want it, I'm just doing it for YouTube. That's it. Hi. Cheesy pizza, drowned in mustard and mayonnaise. It's ginormous, look at it. Yum. So good. I mean, I hate filming myself eating. It's the weirdest thing to do on the planet. I mean, let's face it, it's not like Italian pizza or even Serbian pizza, which is amazing, but it's street pizza to fill you up on a day out in Sofia. Oh, look at that. That looks nice, doesn't it? Right, I'm back one final time to end this video, and to answer the rather clickbaity question in the title, I only did that to get abuse from Bulgarians. Is Sofia the most boring city in Europe? I've got to admit, I haven't said that it is boring, but you have to remember as well that I'm not here for travel purposes. I'm here to live for a couple of months, you know, as I said at the beginning, because it's affordable. And that's the thing about being one of those annoying narcissistic digital nomad full-time traveller people. That is the case sometimes. You do have to come to places which are affordable in order to make some money to continue travelling, and that's why I'm here. I'm sure Sofia has plenty to offer you as a traveller, tourist person, and of course in this video I've only touched on a very minute amount. So let me know down in the comments if you've been to Sofia, what else can you see here that will make me not think it's boring. So next time we will be doing a couple of expose videos. On that note, actually, things I've learned about being a digital nomad from the last 6 years, and also the truth about travel YouTube before we go to Buzluca. I promise, I'm not going to miss the train this time. Lovely, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Catch you later.